For unity. Are we all set? Yeah. Okay. All right, good morning, everybody. And a warm welcome to the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. We're so pleased to have you here and to be partnering with our friends at the Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada, Dr. Qasr Ahmed, and welcoming Professor Imtiaz Ahmed to give a very interesting presentation. I had the privilege of meeting Professor Ahmed while I was in Dhaka in 2023 and participating in the Walking Museum tour around Dhaka University, which Professor Ahmed established and founded. So a very interesting and innovative approach, which I know we'll all find very meaningful to hear from him. Professor Ahmed will be introduced formally by our friend Qasr Ahmed shortly. But to start, we are one day prior to the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation here in Canada. And I would like to start our gathering today with our land acknowledgement and acknowledge that the Canadian Museum for Human Rights is located on Treaty 1 territory, the crossroads of the Red and Assiniboine Rivers, a historic meeting place for Indigenous peoples for millennia. And Treaty 1 territory is the homeland of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oyate, and Denisulan people, and the birthplace and homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. The water in the Canadian Museum for Human Rights is sourced from Shoal Lake and has been cared for by First Nations in Treaty 3 territory for thousands of years. If you haven't found it yet, the food is to the side here, and you're welcome to refresh yourself. And now I would like to introduce our good friend and partner, Dr. Qasr Ahmed, to present and introduce our distinguished guest for today. Qasr, please.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to find Dr. Jeremy ran to support us in many of the activities, initiatives that came to my mind in the middle of nights in the past. So this is such a privilege to have Jeremy with us today, and my deep gratitude to the Museum Authority to have sponsored this event. And I thought it would be a fantastic opportunity to listen from Dr. Professor Imtiaz Ahmed, who spent most of his adult life in studying genocide, researching genocide, and most particularly the genocide of Bangladesh. And many of you are also aware, and I'm very thankful for the community members to have joined us this morning, despite their day-to-day activities, because we have submitted our exhibit and it was opened in last June. And that was quite a bit of a journey for all of us in this community and scholars aside, because it's a project that has been admitted here for the first time out of Bangladesh for others' information as well. And today, I just not only want to introduce Dr. Ahmed, who traveled all the way from Bangladesh, and we had engaged him in our project that we are running, funded by Global Affairs Canada. And Professor Imtiaz Ahmed has mostly come for that event, and I just thought that why not we listen to him from his first-hand testimony of his contribution towards creating exhibit in Bangladesh, and also making it aware to a host of diplomats, students, researchers, and likewise. Just to begin, I would also like to acknowledge that our institute is also based on the original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homelands of Métis Nation. We all are treaty people, and our institute is deeply committed to work together with our indigenous brothers and sisters. And September 30, just tomorrow, coming up as a remembrance of our working together with our indigenous brothers and sisters. Dear audience, I would not dwell much on this part of my introduction. And just to formally introduce Professor Imtiaz, he's a lead scholar and he taught for a very long time in University of Dhaka Political Science Department, and very recently retired. And he actually was a scholar, a master's degree from Ford Foundation Fellow in International Relations at the Research and School of Pacific Studies. Then he studied in Australia, Canberra, Australia, and then finally, I think, which is worth noting, that he did his PhD from Carleton University. So he spent considerable time, although Ottawa was very different when he lived there. And he was we were chatting for the last couple of days. So some real estate agent almost convinced him to buy a property, but he somehow, kind of dodged it out, and therefore he's not possibly a resident here. Nonetheless, Professor Imtiaz traveled quite extensively in his research portfolio, and he published over 57 books, 21 monographs, 125 research papers. These are all available, and now his passion is always, keep working, and he's leading Center for Alternatives, with who we have a partnership agreement for this Global Affairs Canada project. Today, our plan is very simple, to listen to him in a kind of a presentation. And also, very interestingly, there's a project that Professor Ahmed undertook in Bangladesh. He titled it Walking Museum. So we have a glimpse of it. I'm not going to show the whole length of it, but maybe snippets, and I'll share it in our website, and if you have interest. So we have dubbed it in English so that you don't have any trouble following it. And today also, before I leave the rostrum, I would also like to acknowledge our guests from Thailand, Dr. Ikpan and Joel, and then Maria, where are you with the t-shirt? Okay, so she has already contributed to the museum economically this morning. So we are very happy to have her with us too. And of course, our team, Dr. Sabrina and others, those who have joined Mother Adias, without your support, this would have not been possible. So without further ado, let me hand over to you. And let's begin, and let me know when you want the video to be played. Okay, sir?
Then, after I finish.
Roger, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kausar, for that introduction. I have a couple of slides to give you a sense of the topic, and you can see it's why genocide, and then a journey through memory and justice. My university, that's Dhaka University. Now, oops, how do you change, Kausar?
Sir, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let's begin with why genocide. I'm sure some of you would be well versed on this topic, but just quickly to give a sense, because people have different understanding of it. We cannot redefine the concept. The concept is now internationally, legally accepted concept, so we can't have our own concept. When it gets translated in local languages, sometimes it becomes a problem. Like in Bangla, when it gets translated, it's more near to mass killing. Mass killing can be one of the thing of genocide, but there can be mass killing which is not genocide. Okay. Let's see. Now, 1948 Convention makes it very clear the key thing to remember in genocide is the intent to destroy. And in 4 categories, not more than 4 categories. They agreed only on 4 categories: national, ethnic, racial, and religious. That's it. Not political, not other kinds of, you can have those are punishable offenses, no doubt, but not genocide. So when we say genocide, it's intent to destroy. That's first. And the second part would be on the 4 categories. Outside the 4 categories, that's not what the 48 Convention wants. And killing member of the group, but remember, mental harm can also be genocide. If there's a mental harm, conditions of life. sometimes people forget, conditions of life, preventing births, including if you transfer children, from the parents, that also would be genocide. So they were very clear of what genocide is all about. They did not agree on. There were a lot of other things when the discourse started, but they agreed on this thing. So keep in mind, this is what genocide is all about. And more importantly, they had another clause which makes it very clear that when it comes to punishable, it includes attempt to commit genocide also. It has not been committed, but very attempt can also be genocidal, and more importantly, complicity in genocide. So if you are silent, if you are helping publishing, or if you don't do anything, or if you are supplying weapons, that also can be genocide. So that's what 1948 Convention is all about, and this is what they agreed. And we can't change the definition, unfortunately, but this is what genocide is all about. Now, when I look into genocide, I bring a different methodology altogether. And this is, one can say, South Asian dialectics. You see, dialectics have been present in every civilizations. Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Hegelian dialectics, which is wrongly understood as thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Hegel did not write that in his 18 volumes, nowhere. It was rather the critiques of Hegel who saw Hegelian dialectics as thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Because Hegel would say, no, antithesis itself would include contradiction. Synthesis also would include contradiction. But this is what Hegelian dialectics all about, and Western dialectics have been understood as thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Whereas the Chinese dialectics is a relationship between yin and yang. If you are familiar with the South Korean flag, that's the thing. That's yin and yang, the masculine and feminine. You cannot have one without the other. So in the Chinese dialectics, they don't look for synthesis, they look for harmony or balance. Balancing the yin and yang, that's it. You can't take one side to the other. And they take contradiction to be real and to be something that you have to deal with. You cannot have a world without contradiction. And even currently, the Chinese state, it really, when they work, they take yin and yang very seriously. So you can have contradiction, but you just look for harmony or balance in that. South Asian dialectics, on the other hand, is very different. It's called Prashungika. That's the term, a Sanskrit term, which, if I translate, it will be theory of contemporaneous. Okay, and it goes circle after circle. Mandala. If you are familiar with mandala, if you have ever visited Nepal, you must have seen a lot of mandala. So it's circle after circle. That's what South Asian dialectics is all about. We don't look for synthesis. We don't look for balanced stuff like the yin and yang. Rather, it's one after another, one after another. And it can be endless almost. And it is very complex. So from that point of view, if you put genocide at the center, it will definitely have a legal discourse, at the same time politics, at the same time economics, socio-cultural, technology, psychology, and you can go on and on. And there's no priority in that. So it's highly complex in addressing it. Some of the literature, they try to do that. But when it comes to defining Prashungika, it becomes very problematic. You can just make an abstraction, and this is the best abstraction one can make up. So what I will be, to me, when I take genocide, I take this whole issue, the legal issue, the political, the economic, the social, and go on and on. Nothing is outside. Everything is connected to genocide. Now, very quickly, there are two ways to distinguish that from the position that I'm taking, and one would be the well-known one, the statist discourse. Genocide understood from the standpoint of the state. And the best person, of course, would be Hegel, who, if you remember, pointed out clearly that the state is the absolute reality and the individual himself has objective existence, truth, and morality only in his capacity as a member of the state. If there is no state, there is no history. So history must have state. That's what the Hegelian discourse is all about. And in that way, genocide becomes also a statist project. And there are X number of books which will, take up the Hegelian approach. But there's another way of looking into genocide, and this would be the discourse of the person. Now, the starting point of this discourse is the debate that two Nobel laureates had in 1930, and that's a physicist, Einstein, and Rabindranath Tagore, a mystic poet. They sat down to discuss, or mainly to get an answer from a very simple question. And the question that they discussed was, can beauty, truth, or table exist without human beings? Or can the moon and the sun exist without human beings? So remember, one is a physicist who believes in objective reality independent of human consciousness. That is what science is all about. And another, we have a mystic poet. Tagore answered with an emphatic no. He said, no human beings, no truth, no beauty, no table, no moon, no sun, nothing. Because we really don't know how the dogs and cats look at the moon and the sun. The sun, moon is only because of the human beings. Now, Einstein understood beauty because, if you look at Taj Mahal, for example, if you're familiar with Taj Mahal, only humans know it's a beautiful structure. But it's just a graveyard, actually. There's only two bodies there, of Emperor Shah Jahan and his wife Mumtaz. Nothing is inside. It's a graveyard, and everybody goes there to take romantic pictures. That's the funny part. Even Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton also went to take romantic pictures in Taj Mahal. So I tell my students all the time, why don't you go to the graveyard and take a romantic picture? He said, no, that can't be done. He said, only the Mughals could do. Only the Mughals could beautify death. No other civilization could do that. The pyramid is also, includes death as a structure. But pyramid from the outside is not beautiful, aesthetically beautiful. It's not aesthetically beautiful. But if you go to Taj Mahal, if you go to Agra, you'll be stunned by the building. It's absolutely beautiful. I remember when I first went, and I said, wow, it has to be, this emperor must be crazy. But it's only a absolutely graveyard. To make a graveyard beautiful, only the Mughals could do that. Mughals had this sense of aesthetics. So Einstein understood beauty, that without human beings, you cannot have beauty, because when a cow looks at Taj Mahal, it doesn't give two hamba, oh, what a beautiful building, or when a mosquito says, oh, what a beautiful emperor. We don't know, okay? So it's only human being. On the truth, he paused. Immediately, Tagore said, look, truth can be realized only through human beings, because a cat or a dog will not come to you and say, Prof, you're not saying the right thing. Only another human being will come and say, you are not saying the right thing. This centrality, and he understood. So at the very end, Einstein said something which is extraordinary. He's a scientist, but he said this to Tagore. It seems that I am more religious than you are, full stop. Because only by, settling down in religion, he could say that there is something without human beings. Just imagine, for once. And there's no way you can do anything different. But to say that to the mystic poet was quite quite interesting, because here is a mystic poet who had spirituality throughout, and he had songs after song, poems after poems on spirituality, but was very fundamental on this issue that without human beings, nothing exists. Now, where did Tagore get this idea? He got this idea from the Bauls. We have a community in Bengal, and they're called Bauls, okay? And they refuse to stay with the state. They stay outside the state. They stay together. Their understanding of family, marriage, and everything is different. And they can be Muslims, Hindus, Christian, Buddhists, all. And all races, rich, poor, and all. And they go on playing music. They are very good in music. Even the tune of Bangladesh national anthem, that also is a Baulian tune. The lyric is from Tagore, but the tune of Shunar Bangla national anthem, that's Baulian. That's by Gagan Harkara, who was a Baul. Now, the Bauls always had this thing that the divine is not outside, the divine is inside human being. And Tagore has an interesting book. It's called Manav Dharma, or Religion of Man. This is the lecture that he gave in London. So if you're interested to get this sense of the debate, The Religion of Man would be a good book. So he got it from the Bauls that the divine is inside. Now that makes the thing very different from a statist discourse. So the discourse is the person. Without person, no genocide. State may have committed in the name of the state or in building a state, but it's at the end of the day, it's a human being who is doing it. So you have a discourse of the state and the discourse of the person. Two totally different discourse. Now let us see what has happened to this concept of genocide. Now, when we talk about the modern period and genocide, and if you look at the statist discourse, you need to at least get four things out of the statist discourse as to why humans are committing genocide. One is the very understanding of modernity. Because if you ask what is modernity, the answer would be in many respects that it's a linearity or progress. So you move from ancient, medieval, modern. Now this ancient, medieval, modern understanding of history it will not go beyond 14th or 15th century. Mainly done by the Italian scholars to begin with, and then it got spread. Before that, history was not understood as ancient, medieval, modern, not in terms of linearity. It was understood as bad and good. So if you read Plutarch's Lives, which was later made into chronology later, but when he wrote, it was good and bad. Caesar can be good, Caesar can be bad. Brutus can be good, Brutus can be bad. And so in Shakespeare's Caesar, if you remember, Brutus, when Brutus stabbed Caesar, Caesar said, "Et tu, Brutus." If you remember that term, "You too, Brutus." Now, why that is so? Because, as the story goes, Caesar never agreed that Brutus was his son, because he was his son outside the marriage. He never agreed. So here, when Brutus stabbed Caesar, Caesar said, "Brutus, how could you do it? You know that I am your father, Yes, I have not agreed to it, but so you too, Brutus, how could you do this?" So the same Caesar becomes good, the same Caesar becomes bad. Now, in other civilization also, if you're familiar with the Indian or the South Asian epic called Mahabharata, it's the same thing. Lord Krishna becomes good, Lord Krishna becomes bad. Arjun becomes good, This is how history was written. Around 14th, 15th century, the Italian scholars found an interesting way, mainly to promote their understanding of the world and put the world into ancient, medieval, modern. And so the first person who was asked to write the history of British India, he was James Mill. the father of John Stuart Mill. Some of you would be knowing, the logician. James Mill never came to India, did not put a foot in India, but wrote the first book on history of British India. Now, what he did, since he was commissioned to write the book on British India, he went to the library. Now, at that time, history, European history was divided into ancient, medieval, modern. And he does the same thing for India. And what he does, he says, Hindu period is the ancient period, medieval period is the Muslim period, and he's very clever. The last one, modern period, he doesn't say Christian period, he says British period. Now, by doing that, he makes the Hindu and the Muslim nation. The Hindus and Muslims were never a nation. They became nation through James Mill. And after many years, it was the RSS, those who are in power in India now, the Hindu Mahasabha or BJP, as we call it now, they took James Mill argument and started saying the Hindus and the Muslims are different nations. And after 16 years from the RSS position, it was Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the father of Pakistan, who took that argument, and that led to the breakup of whole of South Asia into Hindu India and Muslim Pakistan. So the interesting part of how the colonial legacy contributed, or the colonial discourse contributed to the partition of British India. So linearity is one aspect, the progress itself contributing to divisiveness. Let's put it that way. But let's look into other things. The second one, which is also is perfection. That also is critical. Perfectionism is the belief that the human world can become the mirror of the divine. Through reason, people came to believe we can master the world. So perfection is the second criteria. If linearity is one, perfection is the other. And this, I understand that I am the perfect being. The rest are imperfect. Also led to genocide after genocide throughout history. Okay. The third one, very quickly, is centrism. The West as the center, and then you have the rest as the periphery. So the Western discourse also, and this, of course, you have to bring the colonialism into it, because that's the discourse which created that the West is at the center and the rest are the periphery. So when you have that understanding, it's easy to peripheralize and dominate because you are not at the center. So to begin with, linearity, and then perfectionism, and third is centrism, which contributed to genocide. And finally is singularity. The singularity, and this is everywhere, it's still present even today. One national flag, one national bird, one national flower, one national animal, all one. Now, why not 2, 3, 5? Nobody knows. Okay. Now, for example, Bangladesh's national animal is the Royal Bengal tiger. Okay. Now, and when they made this, I really said this must be crazy, because you can't even shake with the Royal Bengal tiger. You can't even shake hands. Why not the deer? Why not the goat? Why not the cow? Why this Royal Bengal tiger? And the interesting part of it, when there's a cricket game in Bangladesh, there's 1 or 2 person who take this stuffed Royal Bengal tiger and roam around the entire field if there's a victory if Bangladesh wins. So I tell my students, no, they should get the real Royal Bengal tiger, and I want to see how many people will be there in the stadium sitting and celebrating. That doesn't make any sense. So this very understanding of singularity is central to modern state, and that has created genocidal issues, because if you are not in that singularity, you can easily be thrown out. So we have an interesting definition by Michael Mann, and this is what he said: the dark side of democracy. And this is in 2005, and this is what he said: genocides are essentially model and the product of democracies that define the nation as us to the exclusion of those minorities that do not fit. So you can see the whole discourse, we are living in it. And that's the reason we are unable to stop one genocide after another. Even with all the good intentions, we are failing to do that. I think Michael Mann makes very clear, because when it comes to number, and this is what the numerical understanding of democracy is all about, it's mainly majoritarianism. So once you have a majoritarianism, the minority can be just thrown out. And this is precisely the reason why Mahatma Gandhi was critical of this electoral democracy. And this is what he said. He said that I am against this electoral, he didn't use the word even electoral democracy, he said democracy. I'm against this democracy because what it means is that 51% can impose its will on 49%, and I'm against it. But that was 51% imposing its will on 49%. You don't need 51%. Let me give an example. When Narendra Modi, BJP got got the victory. The first time when Narendra Modi came to power, he only had 34% of the popular vote, but he got 2/3 majority. Interesting part, because you don't have to get majority in everything. Okay, you just need, the very system is you just need one vote to win a seat. The next time, when Modi became victorious, he got 36% and got 2/3 majority. The third time, he again got 36%, but it was less, only 0.9. So he doesn't have 2/3 majority this time. Yet he had to make alliance with two political parties. But he never had 67% of the people were not with him. But the 67% were divided. Seeing the 67% were divided, you can actually, control and, dictate things just by having 34 to 36% of the popular votes. So this is precisely the reason why Gandhi, way back, he was talking about 51% imposing its will on 49%, but it's not 51%. And most of the democracies would be like that. Even in the case of the United States, except, I think, if I can remember, 3 times where the president had 50% of the votes. Otherwise, it always has been a minority president. Now, giving that scenario of what is genocide, let me give you a glimpse of what I try to do. As we discuss this idea and also try to implement something. And for that, I had to take 71 genocide as a good way of dealing with both the state and the person, because there's still this debate in Bangladesh of which way one should take, or is it possible to combine both the stated discourse and the discourse of the person. So back in 1971, the intent to destroy was very clear. And this becomes clear because if you look at the targets, over 200 students, 10 teachers, and 12 employees were killed in a single night. And we are talking about 25th March. And I'll try to show you the pictures of the teachers, but you can get a sense that when it comes to employees, even the security guards were killed. So it clearly shows the intent to destroy. It's not only teachers. The students were killed, the staff were killed, the canteen boy was killed, the canteen owner was killed. So that gives you a very sense the intent to destroy was clear. Now, why target university? Well, Dhaka University has always been centered when it comes to movement, any movement. It was the epicenter of the 1948 language movement. And so it ended, and all the movements that one can talk about. So since I was involved in establishing the Center for Genocide Studies, and at one time I thought, wow, why don't you make the entire university to a museum? How do you do that? So we go for a walking museum. We make a walking museum. The longer, the shorter is 2 hours, and the longer is a little bit more, almost 3.5 hours. Dhaka University is quite a big university. So you can literally walk through and get a sense of what genocide is all about. Now, the martyred intellectuals of the University of Dhaka, now if you look at these martyred intellectuals, well, bulk of them are Muslims, but there are also Hindu professors who were killed. But more importantly, very few of them are from social science or having any politics connected. Bulk of them were from science, chemistry, physics, absolutely, biotechnology. They were from science professors. So that also shows the intent to destroy was very clear, because they were not into politics, just because they were professors and probably well known in the disciplines. There was also a philosopher, very famous philosopher, Govindo Chandra Dev, who was actually not so supportive as people say of the liberation movement and all. He was quite critical, but then he was also killed, maybe because he was known to be a Hindu professor. Now, there are 20, areas, markers, if you can say, where you take the walk. You start from the banyan tree, which is, and I'll come to that, and then you end up in the canteen. Now, Madhur Canteen, Madhu is the name of the person of the canteen. That's one canteen where all the important decisions took place of Bangladesh. Name any movement, name anything, all the moves, that was in that canteen. And it still serves the same sweet. It hasn't changed even, they want to keep the same size also, which is very small. They want to keep that. So you start with the tree, and I will tell you why that is so, and then you go from place to place where the students were killed, the teachers were killed, and even there's a British consul there where the security guards were also killed in the British consul, and then you end up in the Madhur canteen. Now, this is Dhaka University's map of the walking museum. You can go, but you need a guide. As I said, it's quite a big university, and what we do is the guide is also known, and sometimes we use students of 1971 who are now quite prominent, and they volunteered to become guides because they were there back in 71. So, and probably we'll see one or two faces when we have the video. So you start with this banyan tree. Now this became very famous because this was probably the first ecocide, because the Pakistan military literally cut the banyan tree. They literally cut it off. Probably the first time you have ecocide, of that measure. The reason is all the demonstrations and all the big speeches were underneath this banyan tree. So it was cut, literally. And then after independence, Edward Kennedy, on 14th February, he planted a new banyan tree. And I was just a class 9 student, but I was there when Edward Kennedy came to plant the current banyan tree that we have. So this is a new banyan tree that you can see, but not the one that was cut back in March. So, and this is also important because this is where the Bangladesh flag was raised. Now, in our history, this is interesting. The leaders did not raise the flag. It was the students who raised the flag on 2nd March and then gave it to the leader. But the leader still negotiated with Pakistan. This was 2nd March, and the genocide started in 25th March. So between 2nd March to 24th March, Mujib tried his best to negotiate with Yahya Khan and Zulfikar Bhutto, but that did not work. And so Pakistan unleashed the genocide the night of 25th March. And Yahya Khan and Zulfikar Bhutto left for what was then West Pakistan. So the students actually raised the flag and then gave it to Mujib, which was quite interesting. Now, as I said, I'll go very quickly, one by one, to show a slide. So this is the arts building where you have all the names of those who were killed, hundreds of them. You can see those were killed in March during the 9 months period that we had from March to December. Bangladesh became independent on 16th December. So starting from 25th March to 16th December, and these are all the killing that took place inside Dhaka University. So you roam around. There's a memory eternal flame, and then this is the British Council. This is an interesting one. The British Council. This is probably one of the big British Council, one of the big one. The British established way back. It was established in 1951. It continues even now. Some of us actually we got our education, so to say, through this British Library. There was a very good library during our time. But there they killed 8 East Pakistan police officers who were guarding the British Consul. So that was surprising. Their graveyard is inside the British Consul still, and that's they have been honored in 2017. So that's an interesting part. Why the police there, who were not even resisting, nothing, just guarding British Consul, why they would be killed. Again, the intent to destroy was very clear. This is the Salimullah Hall, one of the residential halls where the students where bulk of students were killed. I think on the night of 25th March, 12 students were killed inside the halls. And so this is the language movement. Bangladesh, as you know, is unique. The 21st February, which is now the International Language Day, UNESCO has declared 25th March as the language International Language Day. And this is the place. This is the monument where 21st March, it starts from 12 midnight. People and barefooted would put flowers, and it continues with till probably 12 afternoon. People coming here, and it starts with the president and the prime minister coming and with flowers and all. Probably this is the only university in the world which hosts a national event. No university in the world hosts a national event. This is where an event where the vice chancellor of the university stands on the stair and welcomes the president first. He then puts the guard and all, and then the prime minister, and then the ministers, and then the foreign dignitaries, and after that it's open to the public. No other university I know where which deals with the national event. The faculty members, they have to almost take 3 months to do that. Thank you very much. So 3 months work is needed to organize this, because as I said, thousands and thousands of people would come on 21st February. So you move to this is a hall dedicated to the minorities, both the Hindus and the Buddhists. They can live separately if they want to, because of the food is different. And the lot of Hindu students were killed, and you can see all the names that is there. And this is finally there are other areas that I don't want to go into that, but you end up in the Madhu canting, and this is Mr. Madhu, who was also killed His family was killed in front of him. One of his son survived. One son was just 6 years old, I think, at that time. Survived. He's still there, and this is where it ends. And the number of people who got killed at that time, that list is also there. And this is also probably a rare event where the canteen owner was killed, and this also shows the intent to destroy, was very clear. So the official estimate is 3 million killed during the Liberation War. On 25th March alone, some 50,000 estimate number of Bengalis killed in Operation Searchlight, and the references are given there. One on the 3 million, that's R.J. Rummel, Statistics of Democide. You get that figure, but there are other works on this, and we can come back to that later. Thank you very much. Any questions? Or should we show the video now? Okay, please. And then we can take the questions.
So now it's a very short documentary. We dubbed it in English. And this is, again, based on the locations that Professor Imtiaz just mentioned. Have a watch. Can I get some help on the sound?
এটা লাগানো হয়েছিল 65-66 দিকে যখন কলা ভবন এখানে চলে আসে তখন গাছটা হঠাৎ উঠাম এটা মানে সে তো আর ডাল মালা কিচ্ছু নাই পাকিস্তান এটা কেটে গেল কেন এইটা এইটা হলো যখন অপরাধের আমাদের কি দেখা যায় ছোট জামা দেখা যায় কি ধারণা হতে পারে বলতে পারে রেহানার বিষাদ গাথা রেহানার বাবা অসহযোগ আন্দোলনকালে তরুণদের প্রশিক্ষণ দেন মুক্তিযুদ্ধকালে ছিলেন তাদের দলপ্রধান 30 এপ্রিল স্থানীয় দালালরা পাকিস্তানি সৈন্যদের নিয়ে তার বাসায় ঘেরাও করে তাকে না পেয়ে শিশু রেহানাকে উঠানে ফেলে বুক দিয়ে পিষে মারে রাতের অন্ধকারে বাবা গোপনে বাড়ি এসে শিশু রেহানার শবদেহ ধুয়ে মুছে পরে রূপসা নদী দিয়ে ভাসিয়ে দেয় আমাদের মুক্তিযুদ্ধটা কেমন ছিল বুঝতে পারো ওখানে একটা তালিকা দেখবা দেখেছো এখন কোন গ্রাম পাবে যেখানে এই স্মৃতি খুঁজে পাবে না
আমরা থেকে শুরু করছি এই কারণেই, কারণ মানুষকে বোঝানো বা ইয়াং জেনারেশনকে বোঝানো যে জেনোসাইড আসলে কি। যেমন এটা তো বলতে গেলে প্রথম একটা এক্সাম্পল ইকো জেনোসাইড, মানে একটা গাছকে কেটে ফেলা হয়েছে, সেই মানে জেনোসাইডের বিষয়টাকে যে আসলে তাদের যেটা জেনোসাইডে বলা হয় ইন্টেনশন টু ডিস্ট্রয় পার্ট এই যে বিষয়টা, সেটা কিন্তু ওই গাছ কাটার মাধ্যমে কিন্তু সামরিক বাহিনী ব্যবহার করে।
চলো আমরা এই দিক দিয়ে আগাই।
বাংলাদেশের জন্মের সাথে ঢাকা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের ইতিহাস ওতপ্রোতভাবে জড়িত। ঢাকা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় ছিল জেনোসাইডের এপিসেন্টার। এটা অন্য জেনোসাইডের সাথে কিন্তু একেবারেই ভিন্ন। অন্য জেনোসাইড কখনো আমরা দেখিনি যে একটা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়কে আক্রমণ করে একটা জেনোসাইড শুরু হয়েছে, অথচ 25শে মার্চে যে জেনোসাইড শুরু হলো তখন কিন্তু এই বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়কে আক্রমণ করেই জেনোসাইড শুরু হয়েছে।
ওই যে 195 জেনেছ, একটা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় চিন্তা করো যে দেশের স্বাধীনতার জন্য কতজন প্রাণ দিয়েছে, কাজে সেই বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়টার নাম এখন তো স্বাধীনতার জন্য প্রাণ দিতে পারবে না, কিন্তু এখন আমরা যেটা পারি, তোমরা যেটা পারো, সেটা হচ্ছে এই বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় যেন শিক্ষায়, জ্ঞানে, বিজ্ঞানে, গবেষণায় আরো খ্যাতিমান হয়। এই হলে কিন্তু কথা চিস্তি হেলালুর রহমান খুবই সক্রিয়। 25শে মার্চ রাতে এই হলে কিন্তু প্রত্যেকটা রুমে রুমে খুঁজে 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 দেখলাম, এবং তাকে এখানে মেরে, এই যাত্রীকে মেরেছে তার মধ্যে 6-7 জনের মরদেহ এখানে আমি নিজে তাদের সময় পেয়েছি। আর ওই যে বললাম কাঠের রাইফেল, দামি রাইফেল, ওগুলো তাদের পাশে। এটা দামি রাইফেল ওই যে অনুপ্রাণিত করেছে, এবং আমরা যথেষ্ট করতে এই জায়গাটা কিন্তু আমাদের যত বিখ্যাত ব্যক্তি আছে আর কি, মাইকেল মধুসূদন দত্ত, ইন্দিরা গান্ধী, শেখ মুজিবুর রহমান থেকে শুরু করে সব আছে, মানে যত লেখক, কবি, সাহিত্যিক, কাজী নজরুল ইসলাম, কাজী মোতাহার হোসেন, রামমোহন থেকে শুরু করে সব আছে আর কি।
এই ওয়াকিং মিউজিয়াম বা চলমান জাদুঘর, এটাই কিন্তু বাংলাদেশ প্রথম একাত্তরকে নিয়ে চলমান জাদুঘর। পুরো এই জাদুঘর ঘুরতে কিন্তু 2 ঘন্টা লেগে যায়। সব মিলে কেউ যদি ঢাকা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে ঘোরাফেরা করেন, তাহলে আমি বলবো যে পুরো বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় কিন্তু একটা একাত্তরের মিউজিয়াম।
25শে মার্চ এখানে গোলাগুলি, 26শে মার্চ সকালে এখানে ডক্টর নুরুল্লাহ নামে এক শিক্ষক সারা তো গুলিতে পাইছে, বন্ধ করেছিলেন, খাটের নিচে লুকাইছিলেন। এই 3-4 দেখতেছেন হলের মাঠে অনেক ডেড বডি টেনে আনা হচ্ছে, যারা টেনে আনতেছে তাদেরকেও গুলি করে মেরে ফেলছে। উনি প্রথমে একটা ছোট্ট ছিদ্র বের করলেন ক্যামেরা লেন্সটা ভরার জন্য, ওখান থেকে পুরো গণহত্যা উনি যতটুকু দেখছেন সব ভিডিও করে রাখছে। সেই পুরাটা এত দূর থেকে খুবই অস্পষ্ট, খুবই ঝাপসা, কিন্তু এইরকম গণহত্যার দৃশ্য তুলে রাখা এটা খুব বিরল আর কি।
The beginning of a reign of terror by Pakistan, which set off a revolt by the Bengali, ended in the liberation of Bangladesh.
কত ঘটনার সাক্ষী 56 সালে আওয়ামী লীগ তখন কাছে ক্ষমতায়, আমার মুখ্যমন্ত্রী সেই সময় কিন্তু এটা প্রথম নির্মাণ হয়েছে এবং নির্মাণ কাজ একসময় স্থগিত ছিল। পরে আমরা দেখো ওই শহীদ বর্ষা তাকে দিয়ে কিন্তু এই শহীদ মিনারটা 63 সনে প্রথম আনুষ্ঠানিকভাবে চালু হয় এবং সেই থেকে এই শহীদ মিনার বাঙালি সুখে দুঃখে আবেগে আছে। এইটাও কিন্তু বর্তমান মতো এটা পরিণতি হয়েছে। এই রাজাকার আলাদারা ওই যে দেওয়ালের মতো আছে না, মসজিদ লিখে রাখছে 71-এ শহীদ মিনারটা ভাইয়ের পড়ে নিয়ে গেছে। এইখানে আবার এই বুয়েটের এক ছাত্র ছিল আনোয়ার হোসেন গুরু, বড় চিত্র ফটোগ্রাফার ছিল। গুরু একটা ছবি তার আছে যে এই ভাঙা শহীদ মিনারে দুটো ইট কেউ বসায় রাখছে। এই ইটের নিচে একটা পোস্টারে হয়তো মায়ের আওতা বা বোনের আওতা দিয়ে লিখে রাখছে শহীদ স্মৃতি অমর। আমরা এখন জগন্নাথ হলে ঢুকবো, ঠিক আছে? স্বাধীনতার চেতনা, স্বাধীনতার আন্দোলনটাকে স্তব্ধ করতে এবং সেই গণহত্যার সরাসরি সাক্ষী প্রত্যক্ষদর্শী আমাদের পরিমলগুলো সে 1971 জগন্নাথ ছাত্র সংসদ নির্বাচিত তার সাধারণ সম্পাদক ছিলেন। উনি এখন সেই রাতে ভয়াল রাতের স্মৃতি সংক্ষেপে তোমাদের সামনে বলবেন।
সমস্ত ঢাকা শহর উত্তাল, এই উত্তাল আন্দোলন জয় বাংলা সারা সদস্য বেড়েছে 60 পরে আপনারা যারা আন্দোলন করেন আমাদের নেতৃত্ব আপনাদের আমাদের কি হচ্ছে বলতে বলতে 11টা অতিক্রম তখন 11:30 বেজেছে। তখন কামানের বর্জন ছিল বন্ধুরা, তখন আমি একটা বলে গেলাম যে যাবো তো কেউ বলেছে তখন এটা চলে গেল ক্যান্টিনের পিছনে 2 ভিতরে। তখন গুলি আমি তো কিছু বেশি দেখছি তখন কেউ যাচ্ছে না গুলিগুলি কিন্তু মাঝে মাঝে ট্রেন থেকে বা মাঝে মাঝে নর্দমান আবার নাম দেখে দেখতাম আবার খুঁজতেছে বুঝতেছে অফ করে দিয়ে মিলিটারিটাকে শব্দ করে সব আমার বলটাকে দশ সকালবেলা তারপর পরের দিন সকালের কাজ করলো শিথিল হলো তখন একটা আমাদের দুপিরা দাওয়ান তারপরে একদম পাউডার মতো দেয় স্প্রে করে আগুন একাত্তরকে যদি আমরা না জানি তাহলে মনে হচ্ছে যে আমি বাংলাদেশ যাবো। বাংলাদেশ যদি আমি না জানি ঢাকা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়, ঢাকা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় যদি আমি না জানি তাহলে আমি 71 যাবো। ঢাকা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের সাথে 71 বাংলাদেশ ওতপ্রোত থাকে।
এটা কিন্তু গণহত্যার জায়গা। এই যে এখানে রমনা কালী মন্দির আছে, এইখানে শত শত লোককে হত্যা 70-এ যারা এই যে ডিসেম্বরে ইলেকশন ছিল না, ইলেকশনে যারা জিতলো তাদের এইখানে শপথ করছিল সেগুলো 16 ডিসেম্বর আত্মসমর্পণ করবে, কিন্তু আত্মসমর্পণটা খুব তাড়াহুড়ো করে ফেলেছে। এইখানেও আত্মসমর্পণের জন্য এখন জাদুঘরে গেলে দেখবে এই ঢাকা ক্লাব থেকে একটা টেবিল আর 2টা চেয়ার টাইনে নিয়ে আসছে। বঙ্গবন্ধু 10ই জানুয়ারি এসে কোথায় ভাষণ দিলেন? ভারতের এই সরার বিরুদ্ধে। আমরা বর্ষা অরুণের কাছ থেকে আমরা দু এক কথা শুনি একটু।
আমরা 1971 সালে 11 তারিখে আমরা 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 11 সালে 26 মার্চ সকালে পাকিস্তান হানাদার বাহিনী বাংলাদেশ বাসায় আক্রমণটা করে মাত্র একজন সেনাবাহিনী ও বাসার মধ্যে ভিতরে প্রবেশ করে আলোচনা করার পরেই প্রথমেই আমার বড় ব্যক্তিরা হত্যা করে আমার বৌদি হত্যা করে তারপরে আমার বাবাকে যখন আমরা হত্যা করতে আসি তখন আমার মা গিয়ে বাবাকে জড়িয়ে ধরে বলছিল একটা কথা তারপর তো সব শেষ করে দিচ্ছে আমার স্বামীকে নিয়ে বলার সাথে সাথে ওরা আমার মাকে নিঃসংস হত্যা করে এর 1 ঘন্টা পরে আবার আসে আমি যে বাবাকে নিয়ে যাবো বাবাকে নিয়ে তদন্তরে মাসে নিঃসংস হত্যা করে আপনারা নতুন প্রজন্ম আপনাদের সবকিছু জানতে হলে ইতিহাস সম্বন্ধে জানতে হবে পড়াশোনার প্রতি আগ্রহ থাকতে হবে তাতে কিন্তু আমরা সত্যিকার ইতিহাস জানবো না আমাদের দেশটাই এই পিছিয়ে গেছে না সত্যিকার ইতিহাস কেউ বলতে চায়
এই বটতলা এটার যে ঐতিহাসিক ভূমিকা রয়েছে আমাদের ইতিহাসে, যে মধুর ক্যান্টিন সেখানে যে হত্যার ইতিহাস, জগন্নাথ হলের গণহত্যার ইতিহাস, সার্জিন্দুল হক হলে যে গণহত্যার ইতিহাস, এই সবগুলি জায়গায় গিয়ে এই সব কিছু সম্পর্কে জানতে পারা তখন ইতিহাসটা আমাদের সামনে বাস্তব হয়ে ওঠে এবং আমাদের একটা দায়িত্ব রয়েছে যে এই স্মৃতিগুলি নিয়ে আমাদের বিস্মৃতির সাথে লড়াই করতে হবে। আমাদের মুক্তিযুদ্ধের ইতিহাসটা যেন আমাদের পরবর্তী প্রজন্মের কাছেও ছড়ে যেতে পারে।
বই নিয়ে পড়া একটা জিনিস, কিন্তু পুরো বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় ঘুরে 71কে জানা এটা কিন্তু একটা অন্য জিনিস, এটা অভিজ্ঞতার ব্যাপার। 71কে রীতিমতো কথার মধ্যে জানা এবং একটা কি বলা হয় পথ চলার মধ্যে জানা, শুধু যে বইয়ের মধ্যে না বইয়ের কোথাও খুবই প্রয়োজন কোথাও খুবই দরকার, কিন্তু তার সাথে যে অন্যভাবে যে জানার যে বিষয়টা সেটা আমার মনে হয় এই মোটামুটি
Question and answers.
Yes, please. If anybody has any questions, yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I was wondering, have any of the stops on the Walking Museum tour or at Dhaka University? Check. Check, there we go. Thank you very much, Professor Imtiaz. Have any of the stops on the Walking Museum tour or elsewhere at Dhaka University, were any of them damaged during the 2024 uprisings?
Good question. Yes, somewhere the sculpture that you saw were the sculpture of poets and heroes. Yeah, those were vandalized. I believe. I haven't visited that part after July and August, so I don't know. But I think it came out in the newspaper that those sculptures were vandalized.
Thank you.
Yes. Any questions or anything you want to ask? Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for an interesting expose and really the impressions we get of the museum, the walking museum, is really powerful tool. My name is Ties Boerma. I'm a professor at the University of Manitoba and doing some work on death tolls and their political uses and abuses for political purposes, but also the way scientists struggle with that. And I think it was quite interesting to see one of, visitors were saying the importance of real history. And we're trying to do our best to establish real history, but that's really hard. And I think one of the things that is very striking in Bangladesh liberation war story is that there's an official number death toll, which is huge, 3 million. And everybody's been struggling, with where did 3 million come from? Because as we can see today, with Palestine or Ukraine, it's incredibly difficult even today to determine what the true death toll is. And there are very many interesting examples, particularly in Bangladesh, but also elsewhere, where sort of it's almost a sacrosanct number, this 3 million. It's set in stone. And I think you have some experience with that yourself, but also there was journalist David Bergman who did a lot of very thorough work on trying to say, hey, where did it come from? How true is it? I think it also mixes up violence and people who died from cholera or this. India gave numbers of like 10 million people went across the border and so on. So, as you pointed out, we had a short discussion before, in the genocide definition, there is no number. Anything can be a genocide. It's intent that matters, as you explained very nicely. And so it doesn't matter whether it's 10 people who get killed or 1 million, or whether it's 0.01% of the group that's targeted or 10%. It doesn't matter. And of course, that's, it's sort of, a lot of debate has been around it. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what if it had stopped after the 25th of March? Because you several times said it was, there was intent because they did this, because they did that. But if it had stopped completely after that, would that still be a genocide? Or would it not? Like now it went on, killings on a very large scale for almost 9 months. So that's one question. Well, maybe I'll stop here.
Sure. No, thank you. No, that's, a lot of people have this understanding that the number has to be very big. Otherwise, it's not going to be genocide. So there has always been attempts throughout other genocides, making a bigger number without understanding that you can have a genocide without a single killing, so long as intent to destroy. As I say, separation of children would also be genocide. Living conditions can also be genocide. So I guess it became political because the point here is those who have argued for a lesser number did not have the reputation of supporting, the issue, almost like that. It's like you are raising this question because you are doubting it and you are saying, oh, nothing serious happened in 71, something of that kind. That became a problem, I think. So the book that you are referring to, the book that I wrote 18 years back, also ended up with some problems. Because my argument was, I tried to give the lower version and also the higher version in a book. And then try to say, look, you can also count the abortions that took place in whole 9 months. There were X number of abortions that took place. Because not only 10 million people fled to India and became refugees, if you count the number of abortions of 10 million people, and also the number of people killed or who died in India of 10 million, that also would be involuntary death, because they're not supposed to die in another land. So if you count, you can also have a very high figure. So the point is, you can have a lower figure, you can have a higher figure, but that's not the problem. The problem, that's not the issue. The issue is intent to destroy. And this is why the history of the person is important. And this is what I was trying to flag, that the discourse of the person is critical. Because for the mother, it doesn't matter whether 5 or 6 or 10, one death is bad enough. So, but somehow, I think that maybe I should have clarified much more. A lot of people, not I would say a lot, but some people did not understand and tried to make a political issue out of that particular book. So I guess it's everywhere because somehow the number, and it becomes a little bit problematic in the local language. Because the local language that we have, or in Bangla, if we say genocide, we use the word gonohotta. Now, gonohotta, if you retranslate that, it's mass killing. So it has to be mass, And that has become a problem. I think people are not really aware that you have 4 categories of killing in 4 categories, and that intent to destroy is the central part. So I guess it became political because those who were saying were trying to undermine 1971 in many ways. That was the one. They had different kind of politics. But as I say, even in my case, even establish a Center for Genocide Studies, I was attacked. Oh, he must have had other objectives or something. So there are politics, and there are also very low politics. I remember, I think it was Henry Kissinger who said the politics in the university is the most vicious because the stakes are so low. So it could be for that reason I was attacked. I don't know, but I guess they will understand. What I think is important and what the Center for Genocide Studies did, we published a lot, really, really published a lot. I think, if I'm not wrong, 70 plus volumes we published. That was quite a lot. I think what is important in any genocide discourse is the research that has to come, because there are a lot of misunderstanding with the way it is done. Yes, you're not going to resolve the issue, but if you keep on, if the research goes on, then later generations can look back into that research and come up with their own understanding. But yes, it is still an issue. But I think the way we have tried to argue, and the very walking museum is an interesting one. A lot of people found it very interesting and thought of replicating that in other places of the world. I think that's a good part. So you contribute a little bit to this genocide discourse, and I think this is a global issue. Keep in mind, the moment a genocide takes place, it's no longer national, it's no longer regional. It has to be human, and it has to be global. I think that's the what you call the idea that must filter into every mind. When it gets into every mind, probably we will be in a situation where we can look into genocide seriously, and not, make one genocide look better or look more credible than the other. That I think is something that we need to really, really work hard. Sorry.
Related questions I have.
Okay, sure.
My apology. I'm actually waiting from the beginning, but
Sure, please.
I'm glad to see you, sir, here. I'm from Dhaka University too, and we are proud to be Dhaka University students. I think there's 3 of us here from Dhaka University.
Wow.
We are happy to see the walking museum. At the same time, we have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I think I studied genocide for 1 year in London, University of London. I could not continue because I had to go back to Bangladesh to join the Judicial Service of Bangladesh. I worked as a judge for 10 years. I'm just sharing this to share my feelings and my backgrounds. Sir, first of all, 30 million people were killed. I'm sorry, 3 million people were killed. We said 30 lakhs. Of course, that can be more, that can be less. You say that it is not a matter how many people are killed, it is genocide. But still the numbers are coming up to make a question, which is bothers us. And around 300,000 women were raped, and children, so many children were born without any identities. Many of them were adopted by Canadians, which we are proud of. That Canada came up to help. And regarding, I'm sorry to say these things in piecemeal. So David, we heard David Bergman's name. We, according to our understanding, I know them personally, but I reviewed from my last couple of years studying. He is kind of against our liberation war spirit right now. That's what our observations. Again, it can be, you can say yes, you can say no, but there are lots of information found in facts to support that. And I want to say I'm glad to see the walking museum of Dhaka University. At the same time, it's good. Of course, time is a factor. There are so many things happen all over Bangladesh. I mean, the town, I mean, the small place, Chupnagar.
Mm.
Chupnagar genocide is one of the
Oh,
dangerous genocides of the whole history of the genocide. Given the time span and the time span, how many people are killed? I wish we could have that much time to bring all those information up. Sir, I'd also like to share about the people, how many people are killed in Bangladesh. Of course, we cannot say 100% that these many people, there are more people actually killed. But the Times mentioned that, I mean, right after during the war, we know the numbers came up. After the war, there were international newspapers said, and Times was one of them. And anyway, I'm not going into the details, but I want to say that in the last 1 year, more than, I mean, statistically 2,204 monuments and sculptures were destroyed. Those reminded us of genocide history. And the Fuller Road Museum, I mean, the British Council, in front of British Council, the Fuller Road Museums, I would say museum,
right.
part of walking museum, that is totally destroyed. Everything is in piecemeal. So that, is this a genocide now that is happening in Bangladesh? The way I know that you mentioned that the numbers are not important. Important is the intention, destruction, who are being targeted. So who are being targeted? The bowels are being targeted. Bowel musicians' ear is being cut. They cannot sing. If they try to sing, they are getting attacked. They are getting homeless. The Hindus are in minorities are being attacked. The sculptures are being destroyed. Are we getting the genocide? I mean, the people who committed the genocide in 1971, those spirit being back in Bangladesh. I mean, it's just not a couple of sculptures. It's a structure. It's 2,200. I mean, statistically, government statistics, according to government statistics, 2,204 are destroyed. I know that more than that are destroyed. Like Shohid Minars are destroyed. And so that's our important questions from, I mean, not exactly questions, but observations. And also I have one question, one or two questions I noted. My apology, I'm getting emotional because of because I had gone through this. I mean, we all have emotions attached to this. If you kindly give me 1 minute. Okay, so I found that it is more like political history focused. I respect, I know that you had a strong part to create the walking Dhaka University Museum, and we are grateful to that. But at the same time, today I hope we'll get that opportunity in the future, more about political history than genocide. I would like to focus on genocide more, and particular people who are killed because of our Bengali identity, because of the religious identities, and because of the women are always victims. I work with women too. I wish I could have another chance to talk in future here based on my study and experience also. I think my friends have more questions.
Sure.
So I may have more, but I apologize for the emotions I am having right now, because the freedom fighters are now attacking Bangladesh. And the freedom fighters, even graveyards are being burnt down. And then the freedom fighters' children are in the prisons. So all these are making us emotional that the spirit, that the situation that committed 1971, they are coming back. And that is making me feeling afraid and anxious and sad.
Thank you. Yes, please.
So I just want to know from your book what I know about the term you used, that statistical nightmare about our genocide, number of the genocide. So I like to mention here that the controversy or political controversy that we are talking about, the people from 53 years, they don't acknowledge our liberation. They don't acknowledge our autonomy. They don't acknowledge our culture. They don't want us to ban it. They actually want to make it something else. Those people who are active, they are still active, and because of that, it's 2024 conspiracy happened. And after that, what is going on here? So I'm just I just want to be clear about that. The statistical nightmare, is that your nightmare or the nightmare of the people 53 years trying to make it, the genocide didn't happen, nothing happened in Bangladesh, who doesn't even acknowledge our liberation, who doesn't even acknowledge our theme of the liberation. I'm just wondering, whose nightmare is that?
Thank you. Let me, I'll forget. Okay, let me, otherwise I'll forget.
Please, and Ume.
Oh, Umme. Let me start with Umme. I think one way to answer Umme would be, I think Bangladesh is going through a phase. If you tell me it's going through a phase. And the reason the phase is since we had 3 elections which was not properly done. Let's put it that. If those 3 elections were properly done, probably the animosity and the hatred, or the people, if you take that conspiracy was there, or the external actors intervene, probably they would not be able to do that. It's always the case when the house is divisive, then the external actors they play. I don't blame the external actors because they will always have interest, but they can play a role when the home is divided, and that divided home we have. We can't, and that happened because of the last 3 elections, which was a little bit questionable. So we are going through a phase, but I have full confidence of 170 million people. I stay in Bangladesh. I've always stayed in Bangladesh. I know it's a phase, and we went through that phase during the Pakistan time. Don't forget, also in 1975 we went through that phase. People have forgotten. In 75, also some of the things that you see today also happened in 75. Yes, you can see more because of the technology that we have. But, Bengal civilization is a very old civilization. They always say that. It's a civilization that can easily go to 6th century BC. 6th century BC. You can't go in Canada or in the United States, you can't take it to 6th century BC. Unless you bring indigenous people, of course you can go to 6th century BC. But Bengalis can go to 6th century BC. Boom. Okay. So it's a very old civilization. We went through phases like anything. So yes, we need to work. Even with this center positional side, it looks maybe it does not really work the way it should. So I keep my faith and I go back to Tagore. Here, an interesting line say that. I stay in Bangla because I'm sure you will know, and then I'll translate that. Manusher proti bishwash harno pa. So I shall not commit the grievous sin of losing faith in humans. That was what they would say. So I have full faith that the humans will resist. Coming to the question of statistical nightmare. No, I think that was misunderstood. It became a statistical nightmare for the official at that particular time, in that short period, to come up with that number. That became, it's absolutely, if you read that line, maybe I should explain much more. I never thought that will create a controversy. Because the book tries to show, and keep in mind, it was 16 years back, and that time there was no trial. And there was this argument that, the state forgave, Pakistan or something like that. There was some argument to that. The state did not carry the genocide trial. We're talking about trial because it did not take place. So the book at the center actually dedicated to the trial. There was no trial. The trial started much later. And my argument was, okay, fine, the state can say that, forget it. But what about the person? What about the justice of the person? So here I was arguing, of course, with the Tagorean discourse. I was arguing that, what about the person's history, personography? I can use the word personography also. So it's very different from statist discourse. It was misunderstood because if you read the book, I start with Ranajit Guho, and if you are familiar with Ranajit Guho, and he's the one who created this subaltern theory. But at the end of his life, he came out critiquing subaltern theory. And he went to this personography and he went back to the book. Because even in subaltern theory, you have an entity, okay? Because it's just upside down, okay? So you have a state theory and you have a subaltern theory. But that remained Hegelian in many respects, if I can put it that way. So my argument was to take actually Ranjit Guha, and when Ranjit read the book, he got a copy. When he read the book, he said that yes, Imtiaz understood what I was trying to argue, because he was really making a critique of his own subaltern theory, which is quite unique because he is known to be a father of subaltern theory. So there was a theoretical argument in that book. And then I'm trying to argue at the same time Hegelian and the Tagorian. That was the other phase. So it became problematic, I understand, in such a small book, and it needed more elaboration, I can understand. But that particular concept, statistical nightmare, was mainly, I was trying to say, for policymakers, it became a statistical nightmare, because how could they come up with that argument in such a short time? It's not possible. And that is what made Mujib at that particular time say, look, let's do away, we have other priorities. And it almost takes a country 15, 20, 50 years actually to go back to issues like that. Armenians took 100 years to come to realize and get their recognition of of Armenian genocide. Sorry, after 100 years. So I believe with all this walking museum and the documentaries and the number of books, the research that went through, that got published in Center for Genocide Studies, I got 2 copies today. There's one on the walking museum, another on the genocide to hand over. So I think once you have all the research, I'm sure one day it will become part of history. Yes.
Professor, my name is I'm from Social Research Institute of Bali University, Thailand. Thank you very much for your very insightful presentation. It happens that I used to work with a program of the AIPG, the Austrian Institute for the Prevention of Genocide. And then I have 2 questions. The first question is, how does the Walking Museum promote the principle of responsibility to protect into the exhibition in order to prevent the recurrent occurrences of the same attitudinal hatred, fear, and hostility, for all the stakeholders. And the second question is how the Walking Museum will enhance the capacity building for the new generation to learn about the people.
Okay. Well, the first thing the Walking Museum does is make people aware of what happened in 71 and how the university contributed to it, or how the university ended up becoming the epicenter of 1971 genocide. That's the first thing that the Walking Museum does. I remember when the former U.S. ambassador, not the immediate former, before Peter Hess, I forget his name now, when he came to my center and went through the Walking Museum and sat down in the Madhur canteen at the end to discuss his experience, he said, Imtiaz, I should have started my career in Bangladesh with this Walking Museum. But then my understanding would have been much more clear. And he got a photographer with him because we also had the UNDP rep, Mia Sappo was also there, and Mia was telling me, why this photographer? Actually, it's not my photographer. The ambassador got the photographer. And he photographed as much as possible and put it in the US embassy website also. And that helped in some of the institutions in the United States to recognize that we indirectly contributed to that. Now, I didn't know, because he was a good friend, Erd Miller, now here, So Erd was a good friend, we had the Adda, the Bengalis, we go for this Adda. So he was one of that person. And I never thought that him sitting in Dhaka University's Modul canteen, where genocide took place, would make a big story, because next day it became a big story. The US ambassador came to Dhaka University to look into genocide. Because as you know, back in 71, United States took a different position altogether. So that created quite a thing. And but I took it. I thought, wants to visit the walking museum, why not? But him telling that he should have started his career in Bangladesh, walking through this, tells you something that yes, it has moved him. It's very moving. Those who have taken it, believe it or not, if you go, I don't know, I'm not part of the university now, but it probably can be arranged. It's very moving. So that part is one. The second part is the young generation, they come to know and they see some responsibility. Because the research is something that you need to continue forever. For example, I always, I think the other day in one of my lectures, I was citing the founder of Hanafi discourse, Imam Abu Hanifa. This is the Islamic Sunni discourse. And Imam Abu Hanifa says something very, very interesting. He says, a scholar continues to seek knowledge. The moment he thinks he knows, he's ignorant. So you need to continue in your scholarship. So I think even of 71 genocide, yes, I've written quite a couple of books on that, but I think it's endless, and that shows that it's possible, going back to Iqbal's question, that I think the young generation can see merit as they walk through. But what I would be interested is to, if others can build more walking museums. Because, if you want to make, yes, books are one, but this is a living experience that you go through. I've tried my best to, I haven't succeeded it. As I was telling you, back in 71, I left my parents and I was just a class 9 student. And I went to India and I slept on the pavement on the first day, on the first night. I really want to do a walking museum of that. It's like, I don't know whether you have taken the underground train in New York. Right. So it's kind of walking museum. When I took underground train, it's very moving. You must have seen it's very moving. And if one could start that underground train from Africa, that would be even much more moving. So I guess because I went to Gorée Island once in Senegal and I saw the Gorée Island and I immediately said, wow, if one could do the underground train from here, that would be super. That would make people change their mind. So I guess the walking museum in Dhaka University can help build other museums throughout the world of different kinds. And that, I think, is what, going back to Iqbal's question, is the merit of having something of this.
Thank you very much. My name is Joel. I'm from the Philippines. I'm the colleague of Dr. Eka here from CR. We're a group of human rights and peace academics based in Southeast Asia. And this is a very important topic that we are all discussing, particularly what's happening in the world at the moment. And I'm just trying to also take on what Dr. Ekapan's question about young people and their ability to react and to absorb information and to be more aware of what's happening around them. And I think this is a momentum that we need to keep on supporting. But also there is a movement, a growing movement, with much resources on revisionism. And this is, I remember, and this is something that I've always shared with people about the consciousness of young Cambodians towards the Khmer Rouge genocide, where they are questioning the validity or even the reality that happened. Not even like 50 years ago, it's just happened. It's a contemporary history. So how do we counter this? I'm speaking from a position of a scholar academic, someone who had also struggled, but of course in a privileged position. How do we counter revisionism in this age of saturation of information of technology? Because it is important that that we call out that we have young people join us, but also how do we make sure that they keep well informed, that they're empowered by information that is based on the ground. Thank you very much.
Well, one quick answer would be, if you remember the words of poet Ferdowsi Shahnama, he starts his Shahnama with a couplet which is really, really interesting. He says, "Knowledge is power. Knowledge gives an old heart a new flower." Okay, this is a fascinating line. Well, Francis Bacon and others made a mess out of it. They forgot the second part. They kept only knowledge is power. Okay, but the Shahnama makes it very clear, or Ferdowsi makes it very clear. Knowledge is power, knowledge gives an old heart a new flower. So I guess you need to produce flowers. Flowers and endless. It's like a garden. If you don't take care of the garden, or if you don't take care of the knowledge, then it's going to, become a jungle, or it's going to just die down, or whatever. So I think it's important. Yes, there are revisionists who probably question, but I think, if you keep on the research and keep on the evidence, and and now the scientific tools are very important. The last point on this, I think, is important. The reason why we went for walking museum, and we also did a lot of videographies, the documentaries. This particular documentary that we saw was independently done by a television, one of the television centers. I forget the name. They wanted to do it, and I said, okay, fine, please go ahead. It was not done by us as much as by that television channel. So I guess if you now, the young ones, and since you talk about young ones, the young ones are more hooked up on this new technology. So you need to put your walking museum there, if I can make sense of that. And we started actually, we almost, it was done, I think. I'm not sure whether they are carrying forward now with the change of things in our university. I don't know. It is to have an apps. So you can yourself with the apps can roam around. You just need to get into the apps and you can just roam around. The map is there and you can listen to some of the things. So we did that. With the voice and everything was done. So that's something. So you build and build and build. It's endless, the process. So I don't think one should worry about revisionist history. It has always been the case. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I guess I would just like to echo what everyone has been asking in this room. And you had mentioned phases where revisionism may take hold, and the erasure of our monuments, and controlling the narrative in a way that moves us away and moves us towards genocide denial. How would you define these phases that we go through? Because I am most attuned with the current movements that are happening. I see a lot of polarization, which I believe is further accelerated through social media, because that has always been a device used against a population to create polarization within social media, where a lot of young people are engaged. I guess I want to know how you define these phases that keep coming back, and especially currently, it is so large scale. The scale of violence, the scale of destruction, the raping of women, the destruction of entire neighborhoods of minority communities. How would you define the phase we are currently going through?
Okay. Okay. If you remember, if you remember Immanuel Kant's famous statement, he said, perpetual happiness is hell on earth. And by that, what Kant was trying to say is that there will be struggle all the time. If you don't have struggle, you will not know what peace is all about. So if it's perpetual peace, then it becomes problematic. Now, I guess those who are working to make come closer to real history have a greater responsibility, because what happens sometimes the state tries to make use of that for political reasons. And that's the problem. I think what happened with the previous regime, it became, so autocratic and became so intolerant. Let's put it intolerant. Even they could not tolerate me. I had problems with the previous regime also. So I think your responsibility becomes bigger, particularly those who work on these areas, because you have to be very careful that the state has a different agenda altogether. And you shouldn't fall for it. If you fall for it, now I can tell you my experience, there have been times when I was asked to join this commission or that commission. I was given also to become the member of National Human Rights Commission, just to give you one example, National Human Rights Commission. And I say, look, this is one commission, I always make fun of it because you can't have national and human together. How can you have two? National is national. Either you make national commission or make human commission. You can't have a national commission of human rights. It doesn't make any sense. So I said, I made this fun in front of the chief of the National Human Rights Commission. So when I was offered, I said, come on, it's some fun and I don't want to be part of the state. But if I become a part of the state, then it becomes very difficult for me to convince others about what the objective of the walking museum was about. So, oh, this walking museum must be, he wants to get into a ladder and get some post or something. And I have always been very careful about that. I've always stayed out. So you need to be a lifelong in exile, let's put it that way, intellectually in exile. So I guess that's one way of doing it. But the phases, they would come and go because the state has its own objective. And I go back to one of Bengali poet, Shoaib Qadri, who put it in a nice way of what the state is. And let me say in Bangla first, Rashtra money, left, right. State is left, right. You see, so state is regimented, and Kausar would know more. He was part of the states, he would know. So you have to be very careful of what your goals are. And I see myself as an academic, I see myself as a researcher, that's it. But the moment I become part of the state, if I take an office, then I'm asking for troubles. Then I have to either keep quiet or So I guess the phases are you can't do away with the phases. Maybe you will have a better phase next time, because every phase, they say, if you remember the famous statement of Marx, he was critiquing Hegel, because Hegel said history repeats twice. And Marx said that Hegel forgot to say that the first time when he repeats is a tragedy, and the second time when he repeats is a farce. Okay? So you end up with a tragi-farcical as history repeats. Okay? So history will repeat, I will repeat and it comes back. But the second time and the third time will be different from the first time, because we can't go back to the same situation. So hopefully the phases will be different. The next time the Bangladesh phase will be, people would be more conscious of not politicizing 71 or not making 71 partisan, let's put it that way, and not using for its own power. That phase, I think, is very important. That understanding is very important because that it became, really, people became very intolerant, but, for their own personal use, let's put it that way, or for their partisan use. And that has a limit because people really don't like that. But this days, I'm sure it will go because if it doesn't get into your civilizational discourse, doesn't get your cultural discourse, and if you are not into that, this phase you cannot sustain much. It's a phase one can understand why it does happen, but I'm pretty confident. As I said, I have my hope on human beings, and I'm sure this phase will also change in the coming days. Yes, David, sorry.
Thanks very much for, I think, a cogent analysis and explanation of genocide. But what the questions have caused me from the audience, questions from the audience have caused me to pose two questions to you. Here we are in the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, essentially a walking museum, and a museum where the president and CEO name is Faisal Khan. Okay, one of your stops in your university. Here we are in Manitoba, where the University of Manitoba has a Center for Truth and Reconciliation embedded in its culture. Now, I think 3,284 Indigenous students at our university. The genocide, thanks to the academic voice that you have provided and Dr. Khalid provided, and others from the Bangladesh community worldwide. Genocide is now recognized at this museum. And one can simply go upstairs and you can see it there alongside Holocaust and other genocides. So my question is, Canada is where it is today. And any revisionism is challenged more than ever before, period. We have Orange Shirt Day tomorrow. We have the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. We also have a Canadian Human Rights Commission that did take on our federal government. And as a result, we have, because of their independent decision, an obligation for the federal government to provide services in child welfare up to an adequately funded amount. So we're very different, obviously, from the state of the evolution, democracy, and I would say appreciation of the population of its own genocide. And there hasn't been reparation there. There hasn't been a truth and reconciliation. So my questions are two. One, why hasn't there been a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Bangladesh? And the second question is fundamental because when I hear even a discussion about numbers of deaths, which you essentially made relevant in terms of whether there's genocide, horrifies me. So the question I always ask myself, now I ask you, is there not a duty to respect the rights of others in our world on an international basis through the United Nations, through law, through just the general acceptance of academics who understand human rights and responsibilities? So two questions, really appreciate your response.
Thank you, David. On the truth and reconciliation, there have been some movements. There has been people and some institutions, even the Liberation War Museum, Mafidul Haq. They, I think, started working on this issue of truth and reconciliation. It has not happened to the extent it ought to. I think Mufiddul was very busy, establishing the Liberation War Museum to begin with, which is quite a big one. But there have been some movement, so probably years to come there will be. I remember my personal discussion with the former Pakistan High Commissioner, one-to-one, where he too agreed that and he invited me. He knows that I was the director of Center for Genocide Studies, and he wanted one-to-one discussion with me, which I did fine. And one of my suggestions was that bring the Pakistani journalists, the media people, bring the students, let them roam around Bangladesh and see what has happened. And he agreed, but unfortunately, after he left, that did not happen. But I'm sure even the book that I wrote 16 to 18 years back was actually somebody, a good friend of mine, a Pakistani friend in SDPI, Dr. Sabak Khatak, they were involved in helping with the funds and all. So Pakistan, at least SDPI at that time, was involved, knew that the idea was, let's do something on 71 genocide. So I've engaged with the Pakistanis on that also to see and to help them understand, because I think they have a total different narrative altogether, and that has to be deconstructed at one way or other. So I hopefully in the future we'll have something on that. On the second question, and this is something that you and we discussed even yesterday, and I was referring to Gandhi. If you remember the discussion that H.G. Wells and Gandhi had. Those who are not familiar, let me flag this today also. This was when they were drafting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. H.G. Wells was also involved in drafting the charter, and he sent the draft to Gandhi, and Gandhi was not responding. So later on, he sent a telegram, and Gandhi then replied in a telegram actually, saying that you have started on a wrong way. You should start from duties. And then he said he spoke of his own life, that I started doing duties with the family, with the community, and then he said, now I have all the rights, and no one has more rights than me. So he actually puts this idea of having duties. And there was also a discussion from the African group and from the Latin American group to include human rights and duties rather, but then duties was dropped. And then Gandhi's that particular telegram is very moving. It's something that you have been talking about also, that why not duty or responsibility, and those who looked into that debate came to the conclusion also that the empowered can have the disempowered must have rights. It's the empowered which must have duties. So you can break down into that category also, but I think it is an important one, because just talking about rights will not take us very much. You need to have duties embedded as we talk about rights. Yes, please.
Thank you, Dr. Imtiaz, for very illuminating and illustrative presentation. I have 2-3 points to make. First of all, rather than getting into the semantics of genocide, mass killing has happened in Bangladesh in 1971. Statistically, to come up with a precise number is almost impossible, given the context. No one really get that. It's basically all estimate based on evidence. So in your presentation, when you illustrated on genocide and so on, I would also include mass killing and bring the Bengali term Ganahatta. I think is appropriate. That's number one. Number two is that knowledge is power. powerful, but knowledge is not complete. My own experience override knowledge. Like you were 9th grade, I was 11th grade student. And throughout the 9 months, we had to hide. We could not go to the street. Why? Because the state, you very rightly pointed out, the state defined that the inhabitants of East Pakistan are all quote unquote non-believer, that means Hindus. The Muslims are not real Muslims there, and the state mobilized the military with that mission and its declared mission. So that state mobilization, this mass killing and mobilization overrides this knowledge and so on. And my third point is that in terms of this revisionism and so on, I think there is no other alternative but to counteract working with the younger generation. The fight and struggle can only be achieved through what Dr. Imtiaz hammering again and again, that is, you can make the cycle shorter if you make the counter force, and we have to work with dedication and work hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, go ahead.
In your speech, you were talking about the idea of how singularism can lead to genocide. And I would say you guys have experienced the most extreme of singularism. In the West, we are starting to really see that nationalism rhetoric and that singularity. How do we counter that and also create a discourse that's a more plural version of our countries? We can see that with the white nationalism movement in Canada and the US. We've been saying that there's only one identity here. How do we move away from that?
Well, that's a big, I don't think there is one answer to that. But the moment you identify that singularity is a problem or is an issue of intolerance, then you know that what you need is to overcome singularity. The problem is in our curriculum. Curriculum is very singularity. It only talks about the heroes and heroines of the surrounding area. That's it. Doesn't talk. The other becomes almost villain. And you need extraordinary, what you call it, effort to make the pluralism as part of the world. Because our history, one problem, it is his story, not even her story is not there. That's one serious problem. Okay, it is his story, but history is a serious problem. But if you look at history, it's very modernist. I think it's ancient medieval modern. Okay, and that modernist is also, you look yourself to be the perfect being, and the rest are imperfect. Then you will be reproducing minds which will be intolerant. So I think one way of doing it is to get into the curriculum and see whether you can have an education which is beyond the classroom. Now, I use a concept called D-class space, because classroom has become a problematic now with the technology and all. Class itself is a problematic concept because class ups and down. So that has become a problem because now everybody can take education. It's not to only rich people, everybody can go for it. So you need to declass that, okay? But room has also become a problem because now with the technology, it's a space. You can have a classroom in the bus or anywhere, anywhere you are. So you need to have a declass space. Now the problem now is, maybe in Canada you can have foreign students, but I don't think that helps much. What you need to do with the technology in that D-class space to have students from different parts of the world. And then they should interact. And that is going to be the future D-class space. It has to be. It has started in many ways. The genocide diploma course that we had, we had students from India, from Thailand, from Maldives. So we had students from Pakistan also. So we had students. Okay. So when you have and you have to design a course like that, and if you design a course with enrollment from different places of the world, then you will see your history will become plural by, because of the structure. Because you can't just talk about your own heroes and heroines. You have to know their, if it's a Brazilian inside, you have to know the, if it's a Colombian, you have to have so you need students of that kind from Colombia, from Brazil, from Papua New Guinea, from Bangladesh, and then design a course. That I am sure is going to happen with the technology that we have. And that will take us away from the singularity that we are now getting. We are all into singularity now. Even myself, my whole education was singularity. But we don't appreciate other cultures. If you look at gastronomy, for example, in many ways, it's now very, very plural. Singular gastronomy is everybody laugh at it. Oh, you're eating the same food again and again. So what you do, you go an Italian, you're Greek, and all, and then you improvise it also because some of the Greek are Canadian Greek. Not really Greek will say, no, this is not a Greek food. Okay, so I think in gastronomy that has come. It has also come in the paintings in many ways, but it has not come in the social science or in university education. There, we all need to work hard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So every story ends. So here we also have to join in because of timing, because we can't sit here after 12. It's not possible. But I would like to thank all of you for such a lively discussion. And this ought to happen because this topic of genocide is absolutely always political. Because there are two sides, victims and oppressed, and there are discourses happening again and again. When we took this project of Bangladesh genocide back in 2021, we had two very simple objectives. One, awareness, because this genocide is least discussed in the West particularly, and even to this extent, not out of Bangladesh much. Professor Imtiaz might agree with me because we had a lot of meetings with him and his groups. Second is to get recognition of Bangladesh genocide in Canada, in our House of Commons. So these two objectives we were kind of, and then we were so grateful for the museum to understand this project, and they have done so much. And I think as a nation, we are grateful to this museum particularly to have accepted this one as a project. And it is there, as we will see today. They have invited us to, walk through these exhibits. So this is how we are progressing, but these discourses must go on. We'll continue to talk about how to understand genocide itself. One example here, sitting right in front of us, Darcia Sent. And Darcia is our advisor to CRIC. And in the past week, we have aired 3 of her brilliant episodes. It is there in our website. Have a look. She studied particular case of children, abduction of Ukrainian children into Russia. If you watch her short episodes, these are over 40 minutes long. These are scholarly work actually, and she's an expert because she has a lawyer background. Right? So you'll understand the dimension of genocide, how it has superseded the geography, boundary, nomenclature, etc., etc. The number and killing is absolutely insignificant. As Professor, and I quote him, number is not mentioned actually in anywhere in this whole 19-part clause of 1948 Genocide Convention. Because there was the reason, the intention. Genocide can happen in peace and in war, both. And look at the cases of Darcia Sent episodes, and you'll see the children were methodically transferred. And one of the brilliant quotes brilliant statements she made, and I quote her, apology if I misquote you, Darcia, that even if the war ends tomorrow in Ukraine, do you think genocide has stopped with regards to the children? Do you think over thousands of children have been repatriated and reconnected with their families? No. Then what? War ended, genocide continued. It's a classic case in point. And this is something we have seen today, this morning, amongst us. This discourse continues. And this ought to happen because this is why we are here. We want to talk it out. We want to see where it goes. But, with all this humbleness and all scholars and very enlightened people in this room, you see, Mr. Lemkin, he did his best, of course, and we all know the background. But I'm sure he's not happy because we never could stop genocide. It is happening and happening and happening again and again and again. I don't know. The perpetual violence, towards genocide is something stuck with us. We are progressing, yes, technologically and other things, but we are regressing in this particular aspect of humanity, understanding others that they belong to the race of humanity. We couldn't. That should be the question today. That all of you, I'm requesting you to think in your capacity, what would you do that this cycle of violence of genocide must be stopped at any point. Final point, I was delivering a presentation a couple of weeks ago, a global coalition on hate and bigotry. I was responding to a question that, have you ever heard that, herd of tiger or lions have committed genocide onto another herd of lions? For example, African lions committed genocide on the European lions. It is only us human beings who kind of mastered the art of genocide. And this is something, profound. I'm a very tiny, minority in this scholarship, but I attended a number of, sessions and heard. And this is something we just don't know how to stop it. We just don't know. Right today, genocides are abound in 2 global theaters. I don't have to remind you what are those. You know all of these. What have we done? We have all the states, leaders, political, religious, spiritual, you name it. What have we done? We couldn't do anything. Even we are not talking about it to stop it. That is the fallacy. That is the irony of our civilization. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.